I've talked about scouting a lot in the past, but I realised I've never actually gone in depth on where to scout, what to look for, and how to do it. You know, the most important parts of scouting a new player. If you want to know a bit more about youth scouting, check the video in the card on the top right, but today we're looking at fully grown players who are playing for actual clubs in the game. So scouting, what's the point? Not only is it the easiest way to find players that fit your tactic, but it can also be an easy way of adding some realism to FIFA career mode. Scout instructions are a big part of that, so let's first have a look at what they all mean. The majority of the time, you'll probably have first team quality selected. If you don't, you'll be getting your scouts recommending players like Jamie Vardy while your club is still in League 2. The rest are pretty easy to understand. Tall brings back tall players, Pacey brings back fast players, and aerial threat looks for players with high jumping and heading accuracy. The instructions are 100% something you should be setting up on day one of starting your save. First set up a tactic, and then write down which kind of player you want in each position. With the 6 slots, you can easily cover the majority of a squad. Let's say that you play a 4-4-2 formation. Use one of the slots for attackers, one for wingers, one for central midfielders, one for fullbacks, and one for the centre backs. This uses up 5 of your 6 scouts, so you can use the other one either for a goalkeeper, or maybe you like having a tall striker and a fast striker. You can use different combinations with this last striker, but that's definitely how I recommend you set them up. Unlike with youth scouting, I don't feel like having the best scout straight away makes you super overpowered in career mode. Judgment and experience still work in the same way. A high judgment scout will find players who fit the instructions that you've set better and will also scout players faster, while a high experience scout will find more players in general, so you can fill up your reports pretty quickly. If you're worried this will make things too easy by having 5 stars straight away, you can easily restrict yourself to using only scouts with a lower star rating than your team. For example, if you're a manager of a 2-star team, keep your scouts at 1 star. If you improve your squad and get up to 4 stars eventually, maybe improve your scouts to 3 stars. I know slowing down progression is something a lot of FIFA players enjoy doing, and this is one of the easiest ways of doing that. So now you know what kind of players your scouts are going to find, you also know how good your scouts are at following orders. Where should you be sending them to find that ideal player? This is another way that youth scouting and senior scouting is different, because there isn't actually a predefined best player to send your scout. You'll need to have a small amount of real-world football knowledge to send scouts where they can find the player you want. With a maximum of 6 scouts, you can easily look in 6 different nations which have different types of players. If you know that the MLS has really overrated physical stats, you can definitely find a box-to-box midfielder that you need, while you also have a realistically low overall and low price, so you can buy them for a championship team. If you know that Italy produces tall and strong centre-backs, you can find the anchor to your entire team by scouting Italy. If you know Argentina produces small and agile wingers, you can find the player you need up front to win you some more games. Where you send your scouts depends on who you want, but also the ability of the league. There's almost no point for a Premier League side to be sending a scout to Australia, but a League 2 side could find some cheap bargains down under. Likewise, there's basically no need for a League 2 side to be scouting the Netherlands, because there's no second division, the majority of the players will be too expensive and will be too highly rated to want to join them. Always try and figure out a realistic place for your team to scout as well. If your team has a lot of Scandinavian players, maybe send some to Denmark, Sweden and Norway. If your team's full of African players already, maybe you want to sign a few more. Look at nations where African players tend to head, so France, England and Scandinavia. Most of the time it doesn't take too much thinking to actually understand exactly where you can send your scout to find the exact player that you want. So by now you should know who is scouting where, you should know what kind of player you're looking for, and now it's time for the final step, knowing which player you should pick. So if we fast forward a few months from our initial scouting and have a look at some scouted players, a good time to look at the scout reports is around 1 month before a transfer window. This gives you time to fully scout the most interesting looking players so you can get a bit more detail on exactly who they are. From partial scouting, we'll get a small look at the player's stats, usually a range of around 10 points in 6 categories. This information can be used with other aspects like height, value, age and wage to decide which players are worth scouting further. Depending on the star rating of your scouts, you can fully scout around 5 to 15 players in one nation at one time, so this is quite limited, so you will have to choose your players wisely. However, if you set your scouting nations up in a good way, you might be able to scout 15 players from each scout in a single report. So let's say you're trying to find a striker. You've sent your scouts out all around Europe and they found over 90 different players. So now you've got 6 scouts and they can each scout 15 players. This means you can get the 90 best players in your opinion to be fully detailed and you can know exactly which one is the right player. It's super unlikely, but if you've set your requirements strictly enough, you can probably have around 10 players with similar stats fully scouted for each different instruction. This gives you the perfect chance to sign the right one. I can't tell you which one you should sign because from here it's all down to personal choice. You could be sacrificing 10 pace to have a player that's 4 inches taller. It's up to you if you'd prefer that in your system. Do you prefer your midfielders to have 90 long shots or 90 positioning? This is all down to your tactics, something I'll try and make a video on soon if you're struggling to set up your own tactic. To help you fully understand, here's my scouting instructions with a save where I've done with Manchester United, and I'll also set some up for a team in League 2. So you can see one of the big problems here for Manchester United was the lack of a striker. So I set up 2 instructions here. The first one is to try and find a pacey, prolific striker. The second one is just looking at some that are first team quality. The thing about this instruction here, pacey and prolific, is that it will be returning a lot of players who probably aren't really going to be good enough. It's going to find some young players as well, like Yusufa Makoko right here, but some players down here like Beto, probably never going to be good enough. Apenda, he's young, but again, not very good. A lot of players down here that you probably don't really want. Whereas if you set this up to first team quality, all you're going to get is players that are in the same ability range as the rest of your team. So Edinson Cavani, 80 rated, Lautaro Martinez, 86. We've got a bunch here, you can see them all, they're all between 80 and 86 rated, which is about where my first team squad is. If we have a look at some of the other ones, you can even set up scout reports like this one where you have an age range and a contract remaining. So these are just going to be world class players whose contracts are expiring. So you can easily pick these up, usually for a lot cheaper or for free if you do it after January, where you can get some real bargains on some really good players. For example, Grimaldo would run basically straight into our first team. He's 27 years old, so he'd be a really good option. Yuri Telemans, of course, his contract in real life is expiring too. He would be a really good option in central midfield. So this kind of scouting instruction can help you pick up really good players for really cheap prices. So now we're having a look at Wimbledon. Let's have a look at how you can decide what kind of scouting instruction you actually need. So if we have a look at our first team, pretty much the entire team is pretty good. It's about what you'd expect for League 2, so there's not really any specific area you would want to look at. I mean, if you want a tall player, have a look at Kyle Hudlin right here. I think he's 6'9", yeah, there he is. So he would be a great attacking player if we do need that kind of guy. So for a team like Wimbledon, we would probably just do what I mentioned earlier. We'd use one of the scout reports, if we get rid of this one, set it to just goalkeeper, first team quality, and do the same for all the different areas of the pitch. So if we go out of this one, go back into the scouts instructions part of the screen, get rid of this one, now we make this one fullbacks, first team and quality. So this is going to give us all the right players, all the players that we want to get up the divisions. If you've got any questions, make sure you ask them either in the comments below, or why don't you try and join the Discord, where the link is in the description below. We have a ton of different people on there who are all interested in answering your questions. Everyone in there loves career mode, everyone in there that loves football as well, and make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, I'll see you soon for another video. Cheers and goodbye.